How's it going, Exile? So in this video I show you how to craft Abyssal Overrun Waystones like these ones here with a high amount of rare monsters and a higher amount of item rarity. So as you can see, like all these Waystones here have like 40% plus item rarity, 40% plus rare monsters, or like, sometimes it's like a combination of them. If you self-craft them, they're gonna be a little bit different. This one, for example, has 46% rare monsters and 60% item rarity. And I'm gonna teach you how to basically craft these for roughly 100 exalts a piece, which is less than 25% of their market price. So if, for example, we check this one, it has 60% item rarity and 40% rare monsters. So if we go to our trade site and we say, 60% item rarity and 40% rare monsters with Abyssal Uncorrupted Waystone. So we don't even find this for 1 divine. This is like a 2 divine Waystone, for example. But, if you go a little bit lower and you have like the 40/40s, they go for like 1 divine, for example. Obviously, you're going to have like a little bit of a variance in these Waystones. But anyway, so I'm going to teach you how to make these for 100 exalts. So that's 25% of the cost. These are the Waystones I'm running all the time for profit. And if you're interested in how I do this, I link the video in the description down below as well. So this video also includes proof that this method is working. So as you can see right now, I bought a total of 288 maps and I will craft up 288 maps and we will see how many overrun modifiers we actually get out of these 288 maps. And then we can directly see how many exalts we paid per map. And you will see that my equation here is accurate, that you're going to pay roughly 100 exalts per map, which is 25% of the current market price. But now let's get into how to actually craft this map. And there's actually 2 methods to craft these maps. One is completely manual craft, starting with like your Waystones you have in your stash. And the second one is obtaining those Waystones from trade. So the second one is much cheaper in the terms of exalted orbs, but it costs gold to buy those maps because it's roughly 20k to buy a map. And the first one is really just completely crafting the maps yourself, so you don't really need to do any trade whatsoever, but it's going to be much more expensive in terms of exalted orb. So now let's start with the first method, which is going to be the complete manual craft. If you want to look for the more efficient method, just check the skip links in the description down below and you might just skip forward to that section directly. Alright, here's how you craft your maps yourself. You can do this, but it's gonna be more expensive and more RNG. But you can still do this if you don't want to use the trade. So I show you 2 different variants here. One is a little bit less cost efficient, but faster to do because you can just, without using your brain, slam. And the second one is a tiny bit more cost efficient, but you actually have to look a little bit to the outcomes here. So the first one is simple, right? We take our Waystone, we have chaotic monsters, and we have our Sinistral Necromancy because we want to have our Desecration to land in the prefix. And then we're going to have the, the vertebrae here, which we're going to use at the very end. So basically we take our map, in this case it's a white map, we alch it, we make it 6 mod, then we use the chaotic monsters with the chaos orb. So now it has chaotic monsters, as you can see, 100% rare monsters, whatever, magic monsters. And last but not least, we have the Sinistral Necromancy, and we just slam in the prefix mod. And if we now unveil it, this has the chance to get the maximum abysses. So this one you would basically just repeat for every single map, and done deal. Alright, so now here's the second variant. The second variant is a little bit more tedious, but you might save some currency in the end for the Omen of Sinistral Necromancy. So in this case, we still do the same thing. We alch our 2 maps. And now they're going to have 4 mods. So the next thing we're going to do is we give it a 5th mod with the Exalted Orb here. So now they have 5 mods each. So now we're going to still go for the chaotic monsters here with our Chaos Orbs. And now the next step is, you remember we just used 5 mods now. So instead of 6, and now we look at the map. So this one here has an open prefix. Perfect. We saved ourselves the Omen of Sinistral Necromancy. We can just take this and just use the vertebrae directly, and it's going to add our Desecration in the prefix. So we have exactly the same like this map now, but we saved our Omen of Sinistral Necromancy. So let's look at the second one. So this one actually ended up with 3 prefixes. So it's the same progress as before. This has 3 prefixes. So we add 1 Exalted Orb to this. And now we add 1 Sinistral Necromancy, and now we put the vertebrae, and now again we have it in the prefix slot. So here's the most efficient method to get a 6 mod Waystone, which having a Desecration in the prefix. and this one is also much less expensive. So you basically just buy them, because now the pseudo mods with the, you know, suffixes and empty prefixes and stuff, they now work. So we can now actually search for the stuff we want as a crafting base. I will drop you the trade links as always in the description down below to do this. You might be confused that right now there's gonna be just, you know, a little of those showing. That's just literally because I just bought 288 of these. So I basically just bought 288 of these 4 mod maps. So that's why the supply is a little low here right now, but it's gonna be back up very soon. And you can also play a little bit with the filters. But yeah, what's the main filters we have here? So you have our mods, like, you know, just ignore like all the desecrated stuff. I put that in so you get the right map. And I don't want to have delirious maps. You can add this if you want, but I prefer to, you know, instill my maps myself. And then I exclude all the mods I want. So the only mod I don't want basically is less recovery rate of life and energy shield. So I exclude this. And then we need empty prefix modifiers, because we need empty prefix modifiers to complete our craft. So then we have Waystone tier 15. You can definitely put this to 14 and 15 if you want. It's not a huge deal to have it at 14. Tier 14 Waystones are also good. And Waystone revives is 1 to 2. That basically means it's going to be only 4 or 5 mod maps. These maps are only going to be 4 mod anyway, because the 5 mod go for much more. And then we have like 2 filters here, so you can kind of play around with this with the supply. So I either do 40 rare monsters to increase item rarity, or I do 40 increased item rarity, 20 rare monsters, or I do 50 rare monsters, or I do, you know, 50 item rarity, right? So either one of these. So you can play around with it. I feel like rare monsters and item rarity for me are pretty much worth the same. Increased item rarity used to be just like a little bit more expensive, but I'm going with the like 40% rare monsters and 20% item rarity right now. Again, if supply is low, you might lower this number to something like 15, right? Or you might, you know, just lower it to 0 and go for the 50. So there's like a couple of different ways. I'm gonna post you all the trade links in the description down below regardless. So I'm going with the 40-20 right now, and I have a maximum budget of 6 exalts for this trade. So if we search now, you can see there's only 10 results showing right now. Again, I just explained it because, you know, I basically just emptied the entire market before recording this video. But yeah, so the process is the same. You go in, you purchase the map, and now it's a little bit different from the process. So we have purchased the map now. And as you know, this map now has 2 open prefix, 1 open prefix and 1 open suffix, right? So if we would slam our vertebrae on there now, it would be randomly in the prefix or the suffix. That's why we used just the Dextral Exaltation, which just cost 4 to 5 exalts. Instead of, you know, the Omen of Sinister Necromancy, we just used this one here. And as this map has 4 mods, we just slam our Exalt on here now. So now it always has an open prefix, and now we just have to desecrate it. And now it's always going to end up with the desecration in the prefix how we want. And we only paid a total of 7 exalts now for this map. Remember, with the old craft, we paid the Chaos Orb. We paid, let's say, in half of the cases, the Sinister Necromancy. We paid like 2 exalts. So the cost would be like somewhere between like 20 to 25 exalts per map. And with this, I only pay 7 exalts per map. So if you're buying your materials to do this craft, don't overpay for the materials. So I know you're tempted to, for example, let's say you want to buy the Dextral Exaltations. So you will be tempted to use the current ratio, which, you know, by the way, these are much cheaper than yesterday. I bought this out yesterday. The ratio was like 1 to 7. Now it's like 1 to 6, actually. The 4 is like a fake, but it would be 1 to 6. But here's the thing. Don't buy them at the current market ratio. You can buy these much, much cheaper, and I'm going to show you basically how to do this. So as you can see, all these trades I made solve to 1 to 6 and 1 to 5. And again, as I said yesterday, the ratio was like 1 to 7. But, you know, this is a bad example right now. But, so you can see it's 1 to 4 now. If you want to get these for 3.5, you can still do this. You just put the trade in, and you just wait for it to fill. And this trade will fill. I recommend doing these overnight. Right now, this is not the best example, but, you know, as you can see, it's just going to take like a little bit, and this will fill. And I did this, for example, for the vertebrae. I did this morning. So if you look at the price for them right now, they are 1.95. And basically all I did, I put the order in for 1.5 and the order still filled. So if you're buying currency at a bulk for like a lot of cash, actually this matters. Also the liquid greeds I bought this morning, So as you can see, it just filled for 3.5, right? Even it's like below the market ratio, these orders will still fill unless you do like a crazy undercut. Same for the greeds, right? It's at 1.82 right now, and as you can see, this is what I did like, you know, a couple of hours ago. I just put 1.5 in, and they will fill for the 1.5. It just might take a little bit longer, but this way you can actually save a lot, especially if you need like 240 of these Dexel exaltations, and you save like 2 exalts on each one. You know, that's almost like a divine you're saving. So I highly recommend, if you buy these, buy them overnight, just undercut them by, you know, 1 exalt or something like that. Maybe sometimes you can even undercut them by like 2 exalts, or like zero 0.5 for like more cheaper trades. But always undercut this market ratio and just put them up. They will fill at some point. As you can see, for example, Liquid Greed just changed to like 1.25. The stock is not huge, but now if you buy out Liquid Greeds, you can even go for 1, right? So if I want to, for example, now say I want to, now I'm going for 1.1. I'm just putting the trade off because I see the ratio just, you know, is a little low. And as you can see, these already filled for 3.5 a pop. And these ones will fill for 1 now, unless the price goes back up. But that's basically how it was. Like, somebody will always drop these at a lower price, and then your orders will fill. I know now it's back up to 1.55. But if you wait long enough, or if you do it overnight, usually these trades will fill for at least 1x below market value. And again, like, this is like a good amount of trades I did here, and it actually matters. You're gonna save a good amount by just, you know, undercutting these ratios by a little bit. All right, now let's desecrate our 288 maps here, because I want to see how many abyssals I actually get. So again, I bought all these with the trade filter. These are all uninstilled. There's actually 2 which ones instilled, but basically they're all uninstilled. It's mostly tier 15s, some tier 14s, and they're pretty much all gonna have this 2 prefix, 2 suffix. That's always what's gonna come out of the trade. Rarely, if you're lucky, you're gonna get one which has already 3 suffixes and 1 prefix. This can happen. It's not an issue for us because we basically want to slam every map, right? So we don't really have to be careful or anything. Like, let's say, you know, let's just activate all of these omens for now, and then I will show you that you don't really have to pay attention at all. Like, if you just fill like a stash tab to craft these up, like, there's literally nothing which can go wrong. So if I throw my exalt on, and you know, this one already has like 5 mods, right? So it will basically just tell you it doesn't work. The item has no space for more mods. So it takes into account the Dextral exaltation before actually slamming this. So really, you don't have to do anything. You can basically just really shift click all these maps. As you can see, like, I can click these as many times as I want. You just shift click through all these maps, and in the end, all these maps are going to be 5 mod with an empty prefix, ready for our omen of, ready for our desecration. So really, there's nothing which can go wrong. It's just going to consume all our omens. We can just really craft up the entire tab. We have to look after this because we always miss some maps, obviously. That's a little bit annoying because you cannot see which maps have been missed, because they still will be highlighted as a valid target. So, but we can do this later with a search filter. But anyway, so if you're like carefully, you know, clicking on every single map, and which I don't do, so I'm just gonna repeat the process here because I was like very, very sloppy. And I know I missed like at least 1 or 2, so I'm just to be secure, I'm gonna do this again on every single map. Again, if you do this more cautiously, you don't have to do this, but I just wanna, because basically every map you screw up in here, right, will get like a wrong desecration, and you basically just wasted the base map. But yeah, so let's do this properly on every single map again, and after that we're gonna do the second tap. So almost done with the first tap. Okay, that looks good. So now we have our 288 maps all prepared with 1 open prefix. And now, you know, we can just unclick all these omens. Actually, it doesn't matter if we unclick them or not. But yeah, next thing is we're just gonna slam our vertebrae on. And, you know, we can just basically put it on every map. We cannot do anything wrong. Because we cannot duplicate desecrated modifiers whatsoever. So in this case, we also see like the nice highlighting. So whenever we miss a map, it doesn't matter. It's gonna get highlighted. So yeah, we just slam the vertebrae on every map. And now we basically just have like a cost investment of roughly, you know, 7 to 10 exalts per map. And after that, we can basically unveil all of them. And, you know, I'm actually excited to know the percentage here on how many of the abyssal modifiers we're actually going to get. because I don't really have the numbers on it, but I guess, you know, 288 is going to be a pretty decent sample size here. Right, so let's start unveiling. So, little to know about unveiling, we basically just have like a little priority system here on the prefix mods. So this is the list of all prefix mods which will be available on your Waystones, and I have a priority system here. So your number one priority is obviously the areas overrun by the Abyssal. This is the juicy maps we run for profit. So this is always our priority one. This is what we're doing this entire craft for. Then we have priority 2. So we have priority 2, Abyssals have 2 to 3 additional pits, or Abyss lead to an additional boss, or Abyssal depths. So these two are priority 2. I would say the 2 to 3 additional pits is better than the Abyssal boss, the Abyssal depths, but you know, that's kind of up to you. Then we have priority 3, which is basically natural rare monsters have 1 extra Abyssal modifier. It gives 30% number of rare monsters. 1 extra Abyssal modifier is just basically more loot on all rares, and then priority 4 is basically area Abyss pits always have rewards. I think it doesn't work. It might have been fixed, but I don't think it works. But it still gives you 30% increased number of rare monsters and magic monsters. So all the other ones basically just give pack size and magic monsters. So if you really don't have anything else, you can pretty much choose whatever you want. So the priority will be Overrun by the Abyssal, then item rarity, then number of rare monsters. So with that out of the way, let's go and unveil our maps. So let's start unveiling our Waystone. So I'm grabbing like the first, you know, few maps from our 288 ones, and I'm going to start unveiling them now. I'm going to talk a little bit for the first and second map, and then we're just basically going to run straight to the end. So we start unveiling. So this is the first one. As you can see, we have in our priority stat sheet, if we open it up again, if we look at it, so we basically have Abysses have 3 additional pits, which is priority 2. So this is the one we're going to choose. And there you go. Then we go for the next one. And we can see, okay, this is, again, Abyssal Depths, 3 additional pits. So again, if we remember, 3 additional pits is our priority system here. Let's go for the next. And you can see monsters increase. So this is basically not on our sheet at all. So if we look at this, right, so we have increased difficulty, we have 98% increased monsters, we have increased experience. So none of these is on our cheat sheet here. So we basically probably want to go for the increased difficulty here, because I think these maps kind of have some value. I don't think it works, but you know, it might actually work. So I'm just going to choose this one here. And let's go for the next one. So we have 2 additional pits again. Extra abyssal modifier. So I'm still going for like the additional pits, even though the extra abyssal modifier is, you know, actually quite nice. And then we go. Additional abyss always have rewards. This is, again, if we look at our priority, always have rewards is in our priority 4. So it gives increased number of rare monsters. And so on and so on. So we're gonna now unveil like all these maps now until we hit basically the affix we want. So here again we have Abyssal Depths. And maybe we can still find one which we actually want. Abyssal Depths. And Abyssal Depths. So it will take a while until you get the mod we are actually looking for. 2 additional pits. Abyssal Depths. So as you can see, like these are quite rare. Like the ones we are looking for actually are not so are not very common. I don't know what the exact odds are for those, but you know, I'm gonna be back once I unveiled all these. So this basically has nothing which we want, right? So we just take a random one. And always have rewards. So again, like Abyssal Boss. So we basically go through this, and as you can see, the odds for getting the one we actually want are relatively rare. There's the first one. So this is the mod we're looking for, right? So it took right now, what is this, 16 maps to get this. So this is still going to be much cheaper than buying them on the market, but I assume the odds are a little bit better than 1 in 16. So basically, I'm gonna fast forward to the end now, and then we're gonna see how big the actual odds are to get this modifier.
5 minutes later.
Right, here we're back with the last few maps. So far I got like a pretty good amount of overrun maps, but you know, we still finish up here, and then we're gonna drop everything into the dump tab, and then we're gonna see how much we actually made. So let's do the last Maps, there's another Overrun. And this is the last one. Right. So now we did the 288 maps. And I'm gonna throw them all together with the other ones in the dump tab. Then we see how much we actually got. A good thing about this, the maps are not wasted or anything. These are still very, very good maps to run on all the kind of maps. They have high rarity, high rare monsters. But yeah, let's see how many are actually overrun. So that's, let's count this. 6, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 24, 28, 30, 35. So we have 35 overrun maps out of the 288. So that's actually 35 out of 288 times 100. So that's a good 12%. So if you think about the cost of these maps with my method, I'm buying them, and I basically, the only thing I have to pay is the omen of, what is it, Dextral Exaltation. We pay roughly, I would say, between 8 and 12 exalts per map. So let's just make it simple and say, you know what, we have 10 exalts price per map. At, that brings us to roughly 100 exalts per abyssal map. And per overrun map. And these overrun maps are actually good maps. As you can see, these all have like rare monsters and rarity mostly, with relatively high values. Like, for example, you know, 52 rare monsters, 37 rarity, you know, whatever it may be. And these are not instilled yet, right? So these still get, you know, the greed or the paranoia on it, so we can still increase these. So overall, these maps cost more than 200 exalts on the market if you just buy these like they are. And also, they don't have our negatives, so we excluded that in the beginning. So yeah, I mean, this is pretty much, you know, 100 exalts per map, so that's less than half of the market price. And also, we have all these other maps, right? So if we would buy these at market price, we wouldn't have all these other maps. And these are decent maps to run, right? So this is like nothing wasted. These are all maps with a positive abyssal. So actually, you know, plus pits, this is all like decent modifiers. So these are great for your travel maps, and these are like worth more than 200 exalts each if you look at them like properly. You know, some of these are might, you know, a divine each if you check the map thoroughly, but I will just run them. But yeah, so this is the method, and you know, I guess we got 12%, so this is pretty good. We saved a lot of money instead of, you know, crafting them traditionally by just buying the bases. And yeah, so I guess I have another 35 maps to run now. So I guess that's pretty much it about this video. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.